What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be giving you guys some tips on how to cover yourself as a nurse. So you guys know I'm in that travel nursing vibe right now, and I've learned a lot of things and stuff that I knew before about covering your butt in nursing. Now, why should you pay attention to this video and why should you learn? Well, the reason why you should pay attention to this video is because your license is your livelihood. So whether you're an LPN, RN, or even a CNA, that is your livelihood. That is how you make money. So you have to do everything in your power to cover yourself and cover your butt. You have to understand that people above you and people below you are going to do what they need to do to cover themselves. So as a nurse, you have to understand what you need to do to cover yourselves. So stay tuned for these tips. Okay, so for my first tip is use your own nursing judgment. So you may be a new grad and you may feel like, oh, I don't know anything. Or for me, when I first started travel nursing, I just felt very nervous, honestly, because I was in a new state. I was in Texas. I'm like, I know there are some rules that are different. I didn't want to make a mistake, and I didn't really feel comfortable in certain situations. I felt very foreign because I worked in a facility where it was almost like a hospital. People were in and out, and I never worked in that kind of facility before. I'm used to long-term care, geriatric, like pop your pills and get out, but I was in a position where I had to actually make managerial positions, if you will. I had to deal with doctor's orders and labs and this and that, and a lot of my patients' health issues were in my hands. So trust me, I've learned a lot. I had to respond to emergency situations, call 911. Like, I kind of was the RN and the LPN at the same time, and I learned a lot. But along the way, a certain situation happened, and I asked a nurse who I felt like I just felt like she was in the top of her game. She was like the A1 nurse. She knew everything. She was just like perfect. And I asked her for her advice, and she told me to do one thing. And basically, long story short, I wasn't supposed to do that thing. So it wasn't really a mistake. It was just something that was the less value choice, if you will. And basically, I got reprimanded for that. And for me, I just felt bad because I felt like, you know what, in my nursing judgment, I felt like I wasn't supposed to do that. But I felt like in my heart I wasn't supposed to do that. And the supervisor said, yeah, you weren't. But I was like, I guess in the moment, the other nurse was the only person around, and I just felt like I trusted her judgment more because I felt like she knew more than me, because like she just seemed like A1. She seemed like, and she's still a sweetheart, and she still helped me in the future. But with that situation, she was wrong. So I just give that advice to you guys, whether you are a new nurse, whether you're a foreign nurse, whether you're a nurse for a long time, whatever. You're going to be faced with situations where you feel like you are not competent, where you feel like you're not enough, you feel like you're not smart enough or whatever. You are enough. So trust your nursing judgment. Don't always listen to the next person, even if they seem smarter than you or feel like they know it all. No one really knows it all. Just use your nursing judgment, even as a new grad, because more than likely your gut is correct. Another way to cover yourself as a nurse is make sure you document. If it's not documented, it's not done. So we all know we have to document when we get a medication, when we give medication, when we give treatments. But did you guys know that if something happens and you notify your supervisor, for example, you have to document it? Like, for example, if a patient falls, you have to document supervisor made aware. Even if the supervisor doesn't even bother to go up and look at the patient, well, usually that's not the case. Or if the supervisor doesn't do anything, or if she forgets, well, you know, you could be nice and actually remind the supervisor so that they can get back to the patient. Of course, that's the right thing to do. But just in case your supervisor is somebody who wouldn't do anything in a time of, like, maybe not so emergent, but urgent, make sure you write down supervisor made aware. So if that supervisor decides not to do anything, at least you cover your butt. You said supervisor made aware. Even when it comes to doctors' labs, if you realize there's an abnormal lab, you call the doctor, you say, hey, this patient's blah, blah, blah level is too low, blah, blah, blah. And the doctor's like, oh, okay, no new orders. Make sure you write down no patient's lab protein was, I don't know, 8.8. MD made aware, no new orders. Make sure you write that down. And that's another thing. When you guys get labs and you need to call the doctor, if you work in a facility like that where you have to call the doctor and say, hey doctor, this patient's lab levels is X, Y, and Z, and the patient's like, oh, okay, well, there's no new orders, there's nothing we could do, or maybe they did order something. Make sure on that lab sheet you write MD notified on 8/7/96 at 1300 if you're military time, or 8 a.m. and no new orders, or see new orders. So that's another important thing. When there are labs, make sure that you write new orders, especially if the patient is on Coumadin. If people feel like that you are not really like paying attention to labs and you're just not calling the doctor, and people are like, what happened? They're going to try to find out, oh, which day did the lab fall on that we missed this? And, you know, labs can be very important, especially if the patient's on Coumadin, or if the patient has a UTI or something, and then they feel like you were the one who picked it up. That's serious. So make sure if there's a lab that you write down no new orders, or like make sure you wrote down that you notified the doctor. Also, another tip for my nurses, nurses, never think you're too good. When your CNAs tell you something, and this goes for CNAs too, CNAs, if you do notice something, of course, let your nurses know. But nurses, if your CNAs tell you something, you better pay attention, because there are some CNAs who will talk about you, and people will talk amongst each other, and word will go up to management and you will get in trouble. So if your CNAs tell you, hey, I think this patient is not feeling well, even if you feel like, oh, that patient is always blah, 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 or if that patient is blah, 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 always look at what the CNA tells you. Don't feel like, oh, well, this person is just a CNA. They don't know what they're talking about. Usually the CNAs are able to catch things earlier because they are more like hands-on, one-on-one with the patient. So usually they know when something is iffy and not off about the patient. So if the CNA tells you something, let them know, because remember, the CNAs are watching you. Even when you're giving meds, how you're giving out meds, don't leave your medications in the room. Don't leave, your finger stick machines in the room, your extra finger stick strips. Remember, the CNAs are watching you, and it doesn't matter if they're below you. They can talk, they can report you, they can do this. So be careful for your CNAs. Work with your CNAs. Try to be as cordial as possible. And number one thing, if they tell you about something, make sure you look at it. Make sure you document that you did something about it, or make sure you, take their blood pressure again if it was too high, or do some kind of intervention. Don't make them feel like you're not doing anything. Like if they tell you something and you're like, oh, well, that's nothing. Like, don't make them feel like that, because they can easily report you, and that wouldn't be a good look. So don't think because they're lower than you that they don't have any power. Also, another tip is don't sleep at the nursing station. So that goes with a lot of people in the night shift. Sometimes I see nurses sleep at the nursing station. Don't sleep at the nursing station. There could be someone, there could be cameras, there could be a nursing supervisor. I know nursing supervisors who purposefully crept, like sneaked to find people sleeping. So don't sleep at the nursing station. If you need a break, go to your break. Make sure you time your breaks, because there are people who, if they don't like you, for example, or if they want something like against you, if they're trying to start up trouble, they would actually time, this goes for CNAs and nurses, they will time how long you've been on break. So that's why I say always time your breaks. Make sure you leave and come at a timely fashion. Okay, if you spend a little bit, 5 minutes, that's fine. But in general, make sure that you time your breaks. Make sure that you come early to your shift, or if not early, on time. Make sure you do those things so that nobody has a reason to complain to you, nobody has a reason to report you, and that you are okay. And last but not least, I would say to protect yourself as a nurse, just make sure that you're more responsible. If you're the type of person who loses stuff easily, don't lose your keys to the medication card. That's very important. Make sure you know where certain make sure you know where stuff is in the facility. Make sure you know different stuff. Make sure you're cordial to everybody. Make sure that you don't leave your finger stick strip in the patient's room. Don't be messy with your treatments. If you finish a treatment and you have the package of the 2x2 gauze, you throw away in the garbage. That's another way you cover yourself, because you maybe like you're a messy nurse and that doesn't look good. So guys, make sure you cover yourself as a nurse. These are all the tips that I have. If you guys have any tips on how to cover yourself as a nurse, don't forget to leave it down in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you tomorrow in my next video. Bye!